Hi, everyone. In my video today, I'll be going over an upcoming release of Wingman AI, which is an open source VS Code extension. You can go and download the Wingman extension from the VS Code marketplace. And in this upcoming release, I'll be highlighting some of the major features, and these features were added to kind of help compete with some of the other popular AI products out there that you've seen in terms of coding assistants or coding IDEs, such as Cursor. There's actually several of them out there now. These features will be pretty important to Wingman going forward. This will be kind of an iterative process where we'll be doing initial release, adding these features, and doing following up, and adding a lot of enhancements to these features too, which will be pretty cool. There's a lot of really interesting things planned here. So let's get started here. Let's kind of dive into one of the things that'll be coming alongside this release, which is be the new documentation website. Right now, this is pretty bare bones, and this will be this is definitely a work in progress, and we'll be adding lots of new things in here that'll be talking about different ways to use the features, using them effectively, links to videos, examples, and different information about configuration here. And if you're not familiar with Wingman, Wingman supports a lot of the OpenAI providers, so you can use things like a lot of AI providers. You can use OpenAI, you can use Anthropic, you can use Hugging Face, Olama. The two providers that we're kind of focusing on for the new features are OpenAI and Anthropic. We are leaving Olama. It's still supported, but it won't support these new features that I'm going to go over here. And the main reason why is because the quality of the local running models is not fantastic unless you have a very beefy machine and you can run like the 70B models or some of the larger ones. Most people don't have those machines, so that'll be coming in a follow-up release to where we kind of hone these in and work on that kind of level of support for the open source models out there and those who like to run the models locally, which I do myself. And we're also open to adding new integrations. So if you want to see something like Azure AI or one of the other AI providers supported, definitely open an issue on the GitHub. So to start real quick, I'll be using this web application that I have here, and it's a pretty simple TypeScript React application. It is a micro front end application, and this is basically just serving as kind of what we're going to be working on. So let's go into VS Code here and let's open the Wingman extension. So on the sidebar here, I can open it up. And there's also this Wingman config tab here that's on the terminal tray. And you can kind of come in here and you could see different settings. You could change the models, you could change your AI providers, and there's a new embedding provider feature. And the embedding provider feature here will support currently Olama or OpenAI, and this is part of the new Composer feature, which we'll be kind of highlighting in this video. The new Composer feature is basically very similar to Cursor's Compose feature, and I'll kind of go walk through how it differs from chat, and we'll do some demos. So the embedding provider here is what you would configure when Wingman goes and indexes your code base, and that happens in two different ways. One, you can use this new index view here, and right now I have an index, but if I wanted to run like a full rebuild, there'll be a button here if I didn't have the index. Um, it will use the embedding provider and a database, vector database that's stored and run through VS Code here. And what's really exciting about that is your embeddings are stored locally. So unlike Cursor, they're not stored on a server somewhere; they are stored on your machine. So it also embeds and vectorizes the data as you save files, as you rename files. It'll keep this kind of up to date code context on your machine to use. So let's jump in here and take a look at the chat feature with some of the enhancements from the code context, right? So I can ask it questions, and I'm doing this as kind of a demonstration of the differences between chat and compose, right? So I can go into the chat function here and I could say, tell me how currency is handled in my application. and I'll send it a chat message. And what's pretty cool here is it'll kind of tell me the way that I am handling it. And this is a method actually from my code base here and where this exists. And just to show you, like, it's not pulling it because I have the file open, but this is, the method here that it's referencing. So I'm going to just close it and say, how does it integrate into my project, right? So I'm using Claude for this. So Sonnet 3.5, and it'll basically tell me that the currency handling, and it tells me that I have a micro front end architecture, which is true. And it integrates, let's see here, it's likely using various components such as the product card and the cart. That's also true. And it'll give me some information about it. So, chat is pretty helpful for asking random questions, right? So, how do I do this? How do I set up that? Simple things that you're just kind of looking for a quick answer on. You can also, I'll clear chat real quick. You can also highlight chat and say, like, refactor this, yeah, something like that. And it'll, you know, still give you code examples. It'll still write code for you. You could copy it. You could move things to a new file. And really, kind of the purpose of chat is just kind of open and flowing conversation. There's some chat history there. It can write code, it can look at your code base. You can highlight things to focus in its context. So you can kind of narrow it down. um, you can just you could just ask a question freely in the file, and it'll use some of those settings you have to figure out how much text in the file to include in its context. And it'll also give you information around related files to your question using that vector database and the embeddings about your project. So chat is still a really handy feature and very powerful. Compose, on the other hand, is a little different. And the way that I think you intend, or I intend users to use Compose, is they have a very specific goal in mind. They want to, fix a particular bug, add some new features, things along those lines. Sometimes they know the files that they want to start in, sometimes they don't. But Compose is really kind of helpful here. So I have my project running. Let's look at an example. So right now I've got a light and dark theme, and you can see it's kind of broken. The nav bar will change colors, and that works. And then I'm using Tailwind in this particular project. And then I've got my home component over here that has a different color. It doesn't respond to the changes very well. It's just kind of broken, right? Now, I know what these components are because they're my application. And what I can do in Compose is I can ask it a question and see if it'll go locate those files. So I can use different keywords for it to go and refine it. Or I can just type the @ sign, and I can search through my files, and I can include them as context here. So you can't really do this in chat. And I know that my home component's likely a culprit here, and I know the nav bar is working. I don't really want to go and have it kind of guess the color theme in this situation. So I really just wanted to kind of match the colors between them, right? Like, just make the light and dark mode work the same between them. And I want to say, make, let's see here, make the styling consistent between the home and navbar components, using built-in Tailwind. Uh, yeah, Tailwind colors. Do not create new colors. So I don't really have a special theme or anything in my application. I don't want it to go off the rails and go create its own theme and a bunch of new colors for the application. Just try to make them kind of consistent between the two. So right now it's in the code writing phase, and it's gathered the information. It's going to review those changes. I'm using Claude 3.5 here to do those changes, and we'll see information. So basically this will be kind of the code review. It'll tell you kind of a summary of what it did. Did it meet, your objective, right? It'll give you a list of steps. Now, this is kind of a work in progress here. So steps here represent manual actions, right? So in this case, it's just saying, hey, look, go ahead and review it, go ahead and test it, make sure it works as you expect it. If there's terminal commands, any kind of manual step here, they'll appear here. If they're terminal commands, you'll have a little action button to run the command for you. So I do truncate the file names here just to make it easier. You'll have 3 actions on each file, and basically you can copy to the clipboard, you can look at the diffs for the file, or you can just accept it without looking at it. It'll give you a list of changes per component here. So we'll pull up the diff view. We'll look here. We'll see kind of what the diff is for the nav bar. Um, you can scroll down and kind of look at all of these, and it'll just show you the diff. Overall, I think this makes sense. So I'm going to accept it. I'm going to open up the home component here. I think these make sense too. And I'm going to go ahead and accept it. And we'll go back to the application and we'll see that the colors are consistent. They look consistent. Maybe this one's maybe a little dark. No, I think it's the same. And you can see that I can toggle them correctly and it works pretty well. It also seemingly fixed my carousel, which was interesting. Let's see here. Improve the layout, added a heading, ensure dark mode. Yeah, so that actually looks a lot better than it did. So this was this is a pretty cool little feature here, right? And you can see how it differs from chat. So we can go ahead and we can try, another one here. The cart page I have is pretty ugly. There's some other, bugs and things we can tackle, but maybe it can just make us a better looking empty cart page. So I can now, this is a really interesting point here, and this is important. You can type a follow-up message and you can keep iterating with the same objective, right? So if I could go in here and I could say, hey, look, go use the new cart component and make the empty state look better. But if I do that without clearing the chat, it's going to kind of consider both objectives and it might try to, think about both changes. And while I do record things like the code review, and I could kind of make it remember, hey, look, you already did this. It's kind of a slippery slope, right? And you'll kind of be wasting a lot of tokens to the AI. And it makes sense that if you're in your mind and in reality, if you're switching tracks and you're just going to a totally different topic, just go ahead and hit clear, right? Just clear things out, start over. The context files will stay in here for you. So you don't have to go pick new files if you don't want to. I'm going to remove home and nav bar in this case because this is just a totally separate topic. And I'm just going to say improve the styling and look of the empty cart state. I'm going to give it just kind of something simple here. So again, you really want to make sure that like you clear things out. So with cursor, you can have like many different composers and they have different names and you can go between them and things like that. This is kind of the first iteration and it's just trying to figure out like what's the best way to do things. And right now I think just clearing the chat, just start over. Or if you wanted to iterate, you could just keep asking it and just keep iterating and iterating and going from there. So okay, so here's a pretty interesting example. I'm saying, hey, improve the cart state, and it's saying that it created this new file here. Again, like these should be manual steps, so there's still some things here to kind of make polish up a little bit. Update the cart component to use the new empty cart component, and you can see here that it started using a new package, and it wants me to go ahead and install the package. And what's cool here is it knows I'm using pnpm in my repository. So this command is correct. And I can just click this to run it. So I'll go ahead and stop my application. I'll go ahead and just click it. You'll see it'll say Wingman command here, just let you know that it's a command that's coming from Wingman. And let's go ahead and check out the empty cart component. So this is a brand new one. Your cart is empty. Yeah, here's the reference to the hero icon. So I'm going to go ahead and accept it. You'll notice too that it put the new file in a kind of the right directory for where it should be. So it tries to kind of infer, the right place within your project to put these files, right? In this case, this is a brand new file. I'll look at the changes. So here it's importing the empty cart component. This looks like the correct import statement here. They're just truncated a little differently. I think that's correct. And I'm going to go ahead and just restart my application. And here we go. So if I click this, it takes me over to the product page too. So that's pretty cool, right? Now it inferred that, right? So if I go and I look, um, let's see here, continue shopping. So it put a link to the products page, right? I didn't tell it to do that. I just said, hey, go ahead and, make things look nicer. Now, obviously there's no diff here because I've already accepted it. But it went ahead and it inferred that from information within my project. And again, it's not always perfect, right? It's not let's add something to the cart just to kind of see. So this is an existing view. It's maybe a little ugly, but um it's not always going to be perfect inferring things. Try to be as specific as possible, right? Like you want to, kind of approach it and remove, ambiguity in the request, right? Because it's going to infer things. It's not always going to get it correct. And it's just important to understand with the state of AI, right? So hopefully this was a good demo and this kind of makes sense around what this is. Compose is a new feature. It will be enhanced. It will be iterated on. There are plans to do automatic validation, so you being able to provide a build script or a test script, some kind of command, and it to basically sit in a loop and monitor that command. So there'll be some kind of maybe apply button. It'll apply things and start validating that features in flight. It's still being planned out. But the idea here is that, right now you're making changes. The onus is on you to figure out, like, hey, is it correct? Am I going to be able to test it? Um, but there's a lot of exciting features. And again, this is probably going to shine with, Claude 3.5 as the models. Use a smart model, use a capable model. If you're going to be spending time and iterating on this, yeah, you could use a 7B model from Olama. You're going to get 7B results. You're not going to get, the kind of results that you're looking for. Um, but if, again, if you have any suggestions, please open an issue on the GitHub repo. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And we look forward to releasing this soon.